Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Tech Talk Live. I am Kristen Gastaldo. I'm your community manager. Today we are joined by Francesco Corti, Mark Howarth, and Martin Whittington. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a moment. Today's topic is about the AWS Quickstart. So we're going to take questions throughout the session. If you have questions, you can post them in our IRC chat, or you can post them on the YouTube chat directly on the side there, and we'll answer as we can going along. We'll ask the presenters during the session. I do have a few announcements for today. This is our second to last event of the year. We do have one more Tech Talk Live, which will be on Friday. You know what? I have slides for this, actually, because I have a few other things to share. So let me screen share real quick. So biggest announcement, always right now on the calendar is Defcon. So we are hosting Defcon in Lisbon, Portugal, January 16th to 18th. So that's coming up in about 40 days. And we are almost sold out for tickets. If you haven't heard about Defcon yet, it is a 3-day conference with the first day being optional. The 16th is Tuesday, and we're going to have a hackathon, introductory training, 2 certification prep courses, and then on the 17th and 18th, we have 2 full days of conference, full and extended talks, lightning talks, keynotes, panels, birds of a feather sessions. The sessions have actually been announced. We're still doing a little bit of shuffling in the order, but if you want to go to the website, devcon.alfresco.com, you can see all of the sessions that will be presented. Registration is open. There are literally 5 spots left for the hackathon, 5 spots left for the intro training, and less than 20 general admission tickets left. So go and register. The conference is free. I will be checking in with people probably in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, to make sure that you're still able to attend. If people are unable to attend, we'll cancel their spots, open up more spots as we need to. We do have a hotel rate already on the website as well. So there is one hotel in particular that we're working with where we have a discounted rate, and we're going to be running a bus service from the hotel to the venue. You don't have to stay in that hotel to take the bus. You're welcome to stay nearby and then just walk and meet us at the bus pickup time. But we do have rates special for DevCon attendees there. There are also 2 other hotels recommended on that page. So again, the hackathon only has 5 spots left. We're starting to create projects and teams. They're all on the community. So just go to the community.alfresco.com and search for DevCon Hackathon. You should be able to find it. You can submit a project or join a team. And Axel Faust is one of our community members who's really kind of heading this up. So you can always ping Axel if you have questions. I didn't tell him I was going to volunteer his name on this. So sorry, Axel. Friday. We have an office hours, kind of an impromptu. We usually do office hours at the end of the month, but just because the holidays are coming up, we decided to sneak this one in early. I actually don't have much about the topic on this because, so we're being joined by Ul and John, and they're going to present on ADF. I'm not 100% sure what they're going to present. I'm not sure if it's an example. I'm not sure if it's features. So they're being a little bit secretive about it. So join us on Friday. It's 10 a.m. Eastern time, so that's 4 p.m. for most of you that are watching that, I assume, right now.
Kristen, I can anticipate that it is an exciting topic because lots of time we receive feedback that we want to see a structured example on ADF, and this office hour we'll talk exactly on a structured and a really interesting example on top of, so done with ADF. And so exciting news, and I want to give lots of anticipation, but join us on Friday. Thank you.
Awesome. That's kind of what I thought. Since they were being so secretive about it, I really thought they had something exciting to show, and it wasn't going to be another like training or a little overview of why we do things and how we're doing them. So I think that is all of my announcements. Everything's on the community. If you have questions, you can submit questions there, and Francesco and I will get them. I'm going to actually let everybody introduce themselves now. I'll hand it over to you, Francesco, first.
Yes, thank you, Kristen, as usual, and exciting about this news about the DevCon. If you want to see the speaker, they are quite clear at the moment. You can see the website. You can check the website. You can start finding all the topics that we will cover. Lots of things in there. So, I'm Francesco Corti, product evangelist for Alfresco. I'm here to monitor the RC channel and the YouTube channel. If you want to raise questions, please do, because today we have 2 great guys introducing a lot of interesting topics around cloud, Amazon, and Alfresco. Don't want to steal time. I leave the mic to Mark and Martin for introduction.
Thanks, Francesco. So Mark Howarth here. I'm a product manager at Alfresco, and I've been with Alfresco probably actually just over 4 years now. So I've been perhaps slightly quieter than I should have been. It seems that this is the first time I've done a Tech Talk live with you guys. So I guess be gentle. I've been spending a lot of time working with Alfresco, both from in the field side as well as now on the product side. And so I'm really excited to talk to you guys about what I've been working on for the last, I guess, 2 years, which has been around what we're doing around the cloud and around, in particular, AWS. And so I'll pass over to Martin.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, my name is Martin. I'm the computing platforms architect at Alfresco within the IT department. I was recently in engineering, moved over into IT just to help define our cloud standards moving forward. In engineering, I was part of the DevOps team and have worked on lots of different things, one of which are the Quickstarts, the AWS, our versions of the AWS Quickstarts. And that's what we're going to go through today. How we've deployed or recommend that deployment is done on AWS for ACS, and something new we're going to talk about too.
Cool. Thanks, Martin. So I guess I kind of tee that up. So today we're hoping to cover a little bit of an introduction to, I guess, what are the quick starts we offer, give you guys a bit of a demo of how to use them, actually take you through the steps and hopefully get one up and running. Fingers crossed we have no issues there. And also then talk a bit around what's inside, why they're important to Alfresco, and also, I guess, how you, where to go to also start taking advantage of these things. If you've got any questions, please start pinging them onto both the YouTube chat, also into IRC, and Francesco and Kristen will start picking those up as we go along. Just to kick things off, I've got a couple of slides I just wanted to tee up. If I can work out to do the screen share. So hopefully.
Yes, we can see.
Lovely, thank you. So first things first, what is an AWS Quickstart? And I guess what is it for from an Alfresco point of view? So AWS, AWS kicked off where are we? Here we go. Something called the AWS Quickstart of what they call gold standards for actually the deployment of software in AWS. And so there is a ton of stuff in there, in particular across different DevOps tools. There's other ones on databases and storage, analytics, data lakes, all sorts of things. And we have also got one on the Alfresco side. And so what we want to talk to you about is essentially what these Quickstart are and why we have them. So first and foremost, they are an AWS artifact. They do live inside of the AWS, I guess, ecosystem, but they're produced in conjunction between Alfresco's architects and AWS's solution architects as well. And what these are is to actually provide a quick and easy way of deploying our software in AWS, and is essentially allowing you to kind of, I guess, turnkey with the latest software that we have. We have this being used by, well, at the moment it's set up entirely for our enterprise software, and it's used for customers who want to try and move their existing installs over from on-premise into AWS, as well as also customers that are doing net new deployments in AWS, and partners building their solutions offer this as a foundation, and so on. So at the moment, we have a quick start for content services. It goes and deploys a clustered Alfresco Content Services 5.2 usually under about 45 minutes, and is available today. What we'd also like to talk to you guys about is a quick start we're introducing, and hopefully early in 2018, that's calendar 2018, for process services. So again, doing the same thing, deploying a kind of production capable reference architecture of APS 1.6, which again should spin it up in about 20 to 25 minutes. And it's actually this that we're going to use as the crux for the demo, so you guys get a sneak peek into some of the new stuff that's coming along. So with that, I'm actually going to step out of screen share if I can find it again. There we go. And we're back. No, there we go. And so that's so the APS Quickstart is one that we've just recently finished, I guess, finished building to tie up an ecosystem against ACS, so that you can get going in AWS faster there too. So to give us a little demo of how that works and what's inside, how that works and how you actually step through that process, I'm going to hand over to Martin, and then we can talk a bit more about what's in it afterwards, as it takes obviously a bit of time to get going.
Thank you. Okay, let me see if I can get the screen share working as well. Yes, okay, there we go. So you guys should see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So this is the Create Stack wizard screen that AWS provide as part of their CloudFormation product. Quickstarts are built on CloudFormation. That is their tool for describing infrastructure as code. So it's a versioned infrastructure, which is a highly valuable way of describing what it is you need deploying onto AWS. So it could be buckets or instances, and you want a repeatable way of doing that, you describe it in a CloudFormation template. The template is either in JSON or YAML format. Which format you choose is down to personal preference. I prefer YAML. It's cleaner, and you can add comments, which is always nice. So I can browse to a template that I've kind of worked with to make sure this demo works, and I can show you some segments of it later. So once you're at this screen, you click next after you've chosen your template. So that's a good step. We've reached this step, and that means that the template is at least valid. Valid meaning the syntax is good, or there's no circular dependencies or anything. I'll give the stack a name because that's mandatory. I'll call it hook. And then there's a lot of parameters that need filling in. Some of them you can see already has some default values. We try and fill these in as much as possible ahead of time for the end users, as it just makes it a lot easier for deployment to be just really a case of just filling in some basic web forms and stepping through the process. So availability zones, obviously, if you're going to use this in production, you want to make sure you have at least 2. So it's your deployment is spread across availability zones, offering some good redundancy. You need to make sure you've got a key pair used for SSH access loaded and ready, which I do. The CIDR blocks, again, this gives you the option for opening up how many IP addresses you're going to have, and what is going to be deployed into private and public subnets. Certain things you want in a private subnet to be locked away from the public. And we use a bastion in a public subnet so that the traffic goes in and out of this instance, and access is also controlled through that instance too. I'm going to quickly get my IP. Oh, brilliant, that's not working. So I'll leave it open to the world for now. I shouldn't do that, but we're only going to have this instance running for 5 or 10 minutes or so. connectivity license there. We're going to deploy to an M4 large. That's one of the choices we have there, or of the other choices there. We've got an ASBOS license form to fill in. So we like to use Aurora for our quick starts, and that's the MySQL variant that Amazon have developed. It's a really good engine. It comes with a lot of great features above and beyond MySQL. So that's something we like to use. Again, you can see here some values are defaulted. You know, they can be changed in the final version. I don't think they'll be there. Those are values you can provide, but for the sake of this demo, I've defaulted them. You provide an email address to send notifications to, and this will be actions that are going on within your AWS account. So things like EC2 scaling up, scaling down. It's good to be notified those things are happening. The database instance type defaults to R4 large, but you can use you could download the template and change the DB instance type to whatever you want. A key thing to note about the quick start is it once published they become open source, so anybody can make a pull request if they feel an improvement could be made. So login details, I'm going to put my email address in, obviously. I'm going to put a password in, which you have to believe me I'm putting in, but I am. I'm going to say tic-tac-toe, if I can spell it, tic-tac-toe. And that's going to update the user details so that I can log in with a username and password I know about. We get to this next stage, which is we can add some tags to the stack, which is always a good practice to do. It's good for cost control. So you might have some cost allocation tags that you want to use that are supplied by AWS by default. And you may also have your own cost allocation tags. And that helps you understand what infrastructure belongs to which project, which team, which individual. So I'm going to call it Tech Talk. In the advanced section here, what I always advise, if this is something that anybody's going to go and do themselves, is to disable rollback. This gives you an opportunity to diagnose and debug what's happening within either the infrastructure or the instances themselves. So by disabling rollback, it won't throw away everything you've been waiting 20, 25 minutes to build. It will say, well, the creation's failed, but we're going to leave this running so you can work out what's caused the failure. And then you have to delete the stacks yourselves and then try again with your new changes. So once you've clicked next, the final stage is the review. It gives you the parameters you've provided, any tags, any changes you've made to the advanced features. And you have to acknowledge that the CloudFormation process may create some IAM resources. Both of the quick starts we have developed do create IAM resources being either access keys or roles or users. So by ticking that will enable you to proceed with the creation. So now I've selected create. The creation is in progress. Clicking refresh, what we should see is the next stack being created. So we have a notion of nested stacks. So if you think about this stack I've deployed being the parent stack to the children, and any stacks within this parent stack are controlled by the parent. So the first thing it's going to build is a VPC stack, which is the networking and private section of the cloud. And then we'd build a Bastion stack, which is the Bastion host and the scaling group to control it, and any security access to that. And then we deploy the final stack, which is the APS stack. That will have the APS instances, the database, the bucket, anything that needs to underpin the APS deployment. So this should take around 20 to 25 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing and hand back to Mark.
Thanks, Martin. So as you just...
Can I raise a question, Mark? Sorry for interrupting you, but one question from the RC channel, and I think it's interesting because we are always interested about question. So the question is, can I create a stack for more customer to share one unique Alfresco platform? So probably the question is, and please detail if I understand correctly, the question is, can I install one instance of Alfresco with more customers inside? So probably is the question how the installation on AWS differs from an on-premise installation. Martin, do you want to this, or Mark, if you want to contribute on that?
I'll let mine start. Perfect.
Yeah, so the difference, in my opinion, between the on-prem installation and the cloud is just where it's hosted. So what's obviously deployed onto AWS is no different. So any customizations, if you're talking about a multi-tenanted approach, that really all comes down to configuration. And all this is saying is, this Quickstart is just saying, this is how we suggest you would deploy this, our product onto AWS in a highly secure and reliable manner. Again, I'll reiterate, it is an open source product. So if there's changes you want to make for yourselves to extend it and keep that within your businesses, then that's the approach to take. If you feel it's something that everyone should benefit from, then you'd commit that back into your forked repo. Anything else you want to add, Mark?
Just, I think back to the basics again. This is the code, essentially codifying the infrastructure required for your deployment of either Alfresco content services, or in the example that Martin just demonstrated with the Alfresco process services. So it's taking away or making it repeatable and consistent each time you deploy it. So actually, if you looked at on almost the other way around, so you could say this stack set is for a given customer, and I know that I can do that in a repeatable manner so that all the customers have the same base, and then you can then pull in the relevant, I don't know, custom configurations for each of those different customers. So it allows you to have more consistency in the way you do that, perhaps more at scale, so that you could say have the one template and then mirror it in effect for say 10 different stacks.
In any case, thank you for the answer. In any case, considering that this is let me say, a regular Alfresco installation, even if we are using a roller that are sort of MySQL, we can also think about managing the different customers and users inside, for example, using the ACL of Alfresco, so defining different users inside Alfresco with some permits inside the repository. And of course, this doesn't affect in any way the installation. And so from this point of view, it perfectly fits on the things that we were showing. In any case, I hope that we answer to the question of the user in the RC channel. Otherwise, please ask more questions. We will be happy to face this. Thank you for the answer, guys. I think Mark, we're talking before I interrupted him.
Thanks. So we've been, I guess, almost obsessively worrying about time to value, and that's been our a little internal catchphrase for I guess a good 18 months now. Is that when we actually look across the whole of the journey with the Alfresco product sets, whether you're a customer, a partner, or a community member, it's how do we actually make it so that you can take our software and get going faster. What you've already been seeing with Ole and the ADF is a great example of that. When you talk about application building, is how do we speed that up? The same with the investment we've been doing around the REST APIs that I've been drip feeding through over the last, again, 18 months or so with with some of the refreshes. That's all about helping you go faster. So in the same way, when we've been talking about quick starts, we've been looking at that same problem, but from the other end of the stack. So so for example, this may be a slide that some of you have seen before, but actually as you go back from the application, back through the rapid app development, back through the APIs, back through the content processing governance services that are the Alfresco platform, is that underneath you always need to leverage some infrastructure for it to run on. And so with the quick starts and the work we've been doing around them has been about how to make it easier to take away some of that burden from the infrastructural side. And this is where AWS really has come in, and I guess why AWS is the company we've been, the infrastructure as a service provider that we've been working most heavily with. And so what we're seeing, I guess, across the whole ecosystem, and for some of you, this is obviously no surprise and no different, is that actually the way people are consuming those services is changing. So rather than buying racks and racks of servers, that you can now just go to AWS or another infrastructure as a service provider, because now I don't need to spend 200,000 just buying new racks for storage that I might need in 3 years' time. Now I can just pay for the amount of storage I need today. And so with that transition, we're starting to see, okay, how do we support people in this more, I guess, the DevOps or more automated way of configuring all of those pieces of infrastructure underlying your application. And then so, okay, so that makes sense. But then you've got AWS, you've got Azure, you've got Google Cloud. Which one of those, on top of a plethora of others, where, I guess, why do we want to work more with AWS than some of the others? And at this point in time, it's simply down to their positioning. They are huge, right? So of the size of that market, they own, I think it's around 36% of the entire cloud-hosted market. And so whilst you keep hearing the news about Google and Microsoft growing at 100% year on year, AWS is still growing at, I think it was 46% year on year, and they're doing that on the 36% of the market. So they own a huge portion of that, just like Amazon with the rest of the other industries. And so from our point of view, actually by building these quick starts in the language of AWS, it is a way of us talking in a language that is familiar for a larger portion of the customers we talk to, of the ecosystem we talk to. And so when we go back again to how do we give you a quicker time to value, how do we allow you to work faster with the quick start, it's about saying, okay, knowing that either most of our customers are either in AWS or moving to AWS, let's use that as the common language. And then it can be also referential should you want to do it in say, Azure or GCP, as we have many customers and people in the community also doing. And that way, as I say, the reference is the key point of that. It's giving you an understanding so that when you talk to the guys that own the applications, you can talk about Alfresco. And then when we want to talk to the guys that own the infrastructure, the tin where the applications are going to run, we have some reference that they can understand around the networking, around the nodes, and how to deploy it. And by the way, Martin or Francesco, Kristen, if you want to chime in, by all means.
One question is coming, Mark, from the RC. Of course, as you can imagine, one question interesting is about, does it work with enterprise only, community only, both? So can you clarify a little bit more about that? Of course, also talking about process and content, because process will come soon.
It's both, yes. So yeah, so we have two, I guess. There is one quick start out there today, which is the quick start for ACS. We're hoping to launch early next year, as I said earlier, one for process services as well. Now, they are focused very much on the enterprise version of our software today. We're still working out how we can support our community in this space, and the same and the reason why we don't have that comprehensive step through at this point is you've also, as I'm sure you've seen in the community.alfresco.com amongst other places, we're talking a lot around what we want to do around containers and how we want to move the way we deploy Alfresco software. So as we start to make that journey also with the quick starts from a VM-based deployment over towards a containerized deployment, that's when I see us starting to try and address that and provide a much better and stronger guidance around that. Because at the moment, we have to make sure it's an effective use of our time, if that makes sense. And so when this containerization comes along, it's a really natural point for us to kind of rally around on that.
And honestly, we can also, thank you for the answer, Mark, but honestly, we can invite the attendees and the people hearing this talk to the Defcon, because at the Defcon, we will start to see some practical example of this containerization and what will be. So it's a good opportunity also to deal with this. Okay, thank you very much.
So we do have a session dedicated at Defcon to Azure versus AWS. So it'll be interesting to see what and that's what other people are using, right, and how they're using it.
Absolutely. And there's actually, again, if you go look through the Defcon list, there's stuff around some of the AWS technologies. There's, as Chris pointed out, AWS versus Azure, and then there's the containerization side. You'll basically start to see a lot of these underlying bits that are going to start converging over the next 12 months. So I kind of talked about this already, but I guess what I was trying to say was is when we looked again at the whole of the life cycle, here I've got a specific section around deployment to production. We were looking at how can we take away some of the friction and the more costly efforts, such as the provisioning of hardware, setting up of backups. So how much of that stuff can we script and make more autonomous for you in conjunction with AWS? And then again, the idea being is that you can actually spend more time actually just focusing on building the business applications that make a difference to customers running our software. And also, therefore, the solutions that you guys provide and you use in your businesses. I just wondered whether, Martin, it's worth actually going through the, let me come back down and get Hangouts. All right, has it automatically stopped me sharing slides, or did I stop a while ago?
No, that's fine. We can see you. Before leaving the mic, leaving the mic to Martin, and of course, Martin, feel free to jump inside the discussion. But of course, one let me say interesting question come from the RC. Even if I'm aware this is probably not so easy to face, I mean, from you and Mark and Martin, but let's discuss. So how the upgrade of an instance works. So, I mean, the question is, once I have installed our instance, what about upgrading and following the new version around ACS and APS on this version? Mark, do you want to take that?
In the context of quick starts, or more just generally?
Well, I think we can start also a discussion. So I mean, the guys is listening to us, so we can also give a first answer that we can then start a discussion around that. It's also more interesting.
I think it's a great point, and it's a great question, a very good question.
It is
because I think it's a challenge that all software you have a challenge you have with all software, and a challenge that actually with Alfresco software we could do a better job with is providing an easier mechanism for how to actually consistently do those upgrades. The reality actually with things like a quick start is we're turning a lot of the infrastructure also into code. So we're actually potentially in one angle adding to that, but through using good practices, and this is where Martin is much better versed than I am, but actually keeping that under, again, good governance, you can actually start to, keeping that under good governance is that you can actually start to be much more controlled around actually how you do those upgrades, so that you don't have some of the risks around manual changes. Now, when we actually talk about the Alfresco software, it doesn't change the fact that you still have to actually do the upgrades. You still got the challenges with any in-process extensions. All of that, it hasn't changed in the slightest, really. When we actually use this quick start, the quick start has both the CloudFormation that Martin was stepping through before. It also has an AMI, and that AMI is a VM, right, or an Amazon Machine Image, which is the same as a VM in traditional speak. And inside of that, you still have the Alfresco software installed. You still have things like ImageMagick. So those problems are essentially still ported. Martin, I don't know if you wanted to chime.
Yeah, I would like to add some stuff onto that. So yeah, upgrades are always a tricky thing, and it's out of scope for what the quick start is providing. It's quick start. It's enabling you to get up and running within a very short amount of time, an environment for ACS or APS. Does it handle upgrades? No. Does it? There's other things it doesn't do. Should it do it? I think it would defy or negate the meaning of the word quick start. But there are things that you can do in AWS that really help you and enable you to make that upgrade path a lot easier. You can look at canary deployments. So maybe we release a new version of an AMI that contains ACS6, and you want to spin that up and see how that talks to your database without it actually making any changes, or maybe you want to do some kind of A/B testing and migrate over. The issue always there is that when you upgrade from one version to the next, there could be destructive processes happening on the database schema, and with the quick start, there would almost certainly be infrastructural changes needed to support ACS6, whatever that may be. I'm not saying this is true, but there could be a connector for EFS. Who knows? So that would mean that as part of the quick start, you'd need to add additional code to say, well, do I want to store my content on S3 or EFS? Well, okay, if I want to store it on EFS, instead of building a bucket, I've now got to build an EFS drive. So it's never as easy as, well, I'm just going to upgrade. And that's why the quick start is really just an enabler to say, well, now this is something you guys can own. And again, this is something we'd like the feedback on to say, well, we solved it this way with an upgrade or a migration, and that would really give us some food for thought on how we develop for further iterations.
Yeah, the ACS Quick Start's been around since I think February or so. APS, as we mentioned, hopefully we'll get that out soon, early next year. All of the underlying, all of the code to the CloudFormation template is actually up in GitHub. The AMIs that we construct that have our software in, again, is all actually all leveraging Chef. And so we actually have some repos in GitHub for the Chef scripts that we've actually written, and the Chef recipes that we've written. But those are things that, the Chef stuff is stuff that we've chosen to use because that's the technologies we have internally. So they're how we've automated the deployment of the software, how we've pulled in any configuration post deployment. But that's all out on GitHub for you guys. If you want to actually have a look at that, see how we've gone about it for the quick start, how it could be improved, and whether you want to use it as a baseline, or if you actually use Puppet or Sol or something like that, then again, drawing those analogies across.
Since everything is working on these is public, is there any ways you guys want to interact with our community members? Any ways people can contribute, give you feedback? Where do you want information? Where do you want to collaborate with these folks?
Is it worth us just going through, pulling out a few of those artifacts as we go through? Firstly, for collaboration, discussion, obviously the community.alfresco.com, shameless plug. There are a few different topics already that have been discussing these, so please get involved on there. It's useful for us and obviously for everyone else to have that all in that one place. Of course, there is also, if you want to actually start playing around with the code, we also have them residing in GitHub. I might just actually share screen again. So hopefully you can see my screen. This is
Yes.
Thank you. This is the Quickstart for Alfresco Content Services landing page on the AWS domain. Again, you can just Google AWS Quickstart Alfresco. On here, you'll have there are links in here to things around the deployment details. Again, this is geared to the enterprise version, so it's also got the references for where you get trial licenses and all of that. But it also has a lot of referential points that you will find useful from a community point of view in things like the deployment guide, which is for the ACS side is 38 pages of references across what an Alfresco deployment looks like, what technologies inside of AWS do we leverage as part of that. It talks about the scaling of it, diagrams, and also includes a step-by-step through all of the different configuration parameters that you see within the template as you go through it. So inside of the Quickstart, this is the AWS architectural diagram, for want of a better word, of what's inside of it. Martin already mentioned that we nest we have nested CloudFormation templates, and one of the ones we pull in is a Bastion host from AWS. So the green boxes at the top is actually surfaced is the recommended way of doing Bastion. So we pull that in. We pull in the one for VPCs, so how to configure those up. And then the ones that are in the blue boxes are the ones that we've essentially provided and configured. Again, there's no point us rewriting the stuff that AWS provides for their community. So this diagram is specific to the Alfresco Content Services side, where we've broken out the Alfresco Content Services tier from the index tier. And we've also connected to AWS's Aurora database. This draws on the same analogy of why would you, databases tend to be a very complex and expensive things to maintain. The upgrade can be painful. So we are using AWS's Aurora service to provide that. And then utilizing AWS's S3 service for content addressable storage, for the actual storage of the content. If we go for the APS side, which doesn't have a public facing page yet, similar kind of setup. However, it's obviously a lot lighter than on the content services side, with just this setup for the APS servers. Again, using the Aurora database service, and also for if you will, the content that's in transit as part of the process, it can also store its content in S3, and so that's all been configured up for you. If we actually look at the AMIs, the servers that actually store the servers that actually run the applications for both the ACS and APS side, they actually come from the AWS marketplace. So these are public images of Alfresco software that we surface up inside of the AWS marketplace. So if you again Google AWS marketplace Alfresco, you'll find a listing for content services, process services, and content and governance services. So on the process services side, this is the AMI that you can either run all in one on this box, or will also get pulled up by the Quickstart as part of the deployment that Martin obviously demoed earlier. And so this actually has a Alfresco process services running in it.
Sorry, Mark, to interrupt you. Just a very fast question. Do you know if Alfresco process services will run on Aurora too?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, that was part of my experimentation when I was asked to do the APS Quickstart. Obviously, APS is MySQL compatible, and Aurora's a derivative of that. So it was a case of adding that in, hooking it up, and it worked. And so, you know, our relationship with AWS is very good. They like it when we use products like Aurora that they're trying to promote themselves. So it made sense. You know, Aurora's has some real nice features that it just was just a given to think, well, if it works, and we're gonna plug that in.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And then lastly, so the code under, I guess both the actual CloudFormation template and the chef that we use to actually configure the applications inside the AMIs is all inside of our the Alfresco's GitHub repository. So for the APS, so there's the APS Quickstart, which at the moment is still in private, but all of the chef we use as part of the building of the AMIs, all here. The one thing I would say is it isn't a supported product. It is something that, as I said, we've used in order to create those AMIs for these quick starts. But we see that it may be valuable either for these repos themselves, or again for you guys to draw reference. So please feel free to go in, if use it, provide pull requests where there are some issues. It is. I will say now, it is built for the purposes of allowing us to build those quick starts. So it could absolutely, it could do better. We can always improve it, but we felt it's at the point at which it might be valuable to people like yourselves that you might want to get going with it if Chef was your language of choice.
Can I just jump in there? On the previous page where you had the list of repos, there was one that said Quickstart APS. That's actually just a private repo that we just had as a placeholder. The actual repo will be within the AWS Labs website. So once that's the public one for ACS, and that's where you would make your fork and look at the templates, any scripts that are run, and make any improvements or suggestions. The same for Quickstart Alfresco process services. That will be live in the early part of next year. They're still going through a review process, and they have a very good pipeline for making sure that what we're committing is of a good quality. So our repo that we have for the both for the ACS and APS Quickstarts are just forks from Amazon. So it's something that is almost of a joint ownership. So that would be where you want to look. And again, looking at the other quick start templates, we use the VPC one, and there's a Bastion one. So if you typed in, say, quick start VPC, that's what we use. So we have a master template that refers to that VPC. So
do you want to drive? Seeing as I think we're actually, I imagine, is the APS environment up now?
It is, yeah. If people were looking to build their own quick starts, then you may think, well, actually, I'm not confident in building out my own VPC. I'm not sure how to hook all those moving parts together. Just use the quick start VPC, get that working, and then you can grab all the outputs. So if you imagine the template being a function that returns you a value, you can grab those values and inject them into other templates. So it's a good resource for understanding what they're doing to really enable customers to move quickly. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen again, which you should see.
Yep.
So we have a status of create complete, which is great. That means that everything built as the CloudFormation template expected it to build. So what we have here is a breakdown of the template and subcomponents, subparts within that template. So I'll get to outputs in a second. But resources, it tells you what it's built. So obviously the parent stack, all it knows it's built are the children's stacks, VPC, Bastion, and APS. So if we really want to dig deeper and find out what's been built within, say, the APS stack, we can click on that. And in the resources, we can see we've got access keys, scaling groups. We have alarms, bucket for content, I am using. You can see all the types in this column here that I'm just highlighting of what's being built. Security groups, a DB cluster because we're using Aurora, more security groups, more scaling policies, instance profiles, which are the best way to make sure you're handling credentials properly, a nice Lambda function because we all like Lambda. So once this has been built, and you can see events as well, so it gives you timings. So we can see here that we started building a stack at 15:19, at 50:41 it's complete. So that took 22, 23 minutes to build. That's pretty quick. And you could have done that, walked away, had a coffee, maybe had a slice of pizza somewhere, come back, and you've got a production capable APS environment ready to go. You can look at the template and look at certain things that you just as a reference to say, well, what does this do? What does that do? I won't go too much into the technical parts of the template at the moment. What you can see though, if we get further down past the parameters, once we get that, is the resources. The resources is the real meat and tackle of the template. So we can see here the VPC stack, it's pulling that in from a URL. We're passing some parameters to it and it builds it. But the interesting thing here, as part of the Bastion stack, as we can see, is we can refer to outputs from the VPC stack. So we say, well, from the outputs, I want to pass in the VPC ID to the Bastion stack. So if we click on the VPC stack, we should get the VPC ID, which is here, perfect. So that value's come out of the template, and we've passed it straight into the next template to be used. So what that's saying is we're maybe telling the Bastion template where to build certain resources. We want it to be all encompassed within that VPC. So that's what we do. So if we go to the outputs of the parent stack, we can see we've got the APS endpoint that's been given to us, and that should take us to the app. I'll try and log in. Tic-tac-toe. And we're in. So that's you as a customer or a developer in a business or any other persona that feels like they need to work out if this is what they need. You're ready to go. And you can start designing apps, tasks, processes, and it's really that simple. Obviously here you can see it's not very secure. What all you would need to do there is you would maybe put a DNS over that endpoint, secure it with a certificate. There'd be more security to apply. Again, we have to be careful of the terms there. Is production capable? So there's more things, more hardening that needs doing at the layers. More security groups, hardening, rules that need hardening, maybe some network access control lists at the subnet level, the instances themselves, the images that are used. You could spin up the AMI, showed to you earlier by Mark, the marketplace AMI. You could log into that instance, install some tools, OS query or whatever to really harden it, and then create an AMI from that AMI and update your template to just use that AMI. And then that means you've got a hardened environment, which is great, I think. So I'll sign out from there, and that's essentially it. So I will stop screen sharing and hand back to you again, Mark. If that's okay.
So I think actually that's the end of what we wanted to, the main topic we wanted to cover with you guys. So Kristen, Francesco, if there's any questions, I think that'd be a good time for the Q&A.
We don't have more questions.
Yeah, the
at
IRC
the
looks
moment.
good.
Okay.
Anything on YouTube, Francesco? IRC looks good.
Yeah, no, I don't see more question on YouTube, but just I have in mind one question I would like to raise. So, especially for I'm having in mind some use cases that I'm aware of. For example, POC or a demo, for example, for pre-sale or stuff like that. So what Martin is showing is that in 20 to 22 minutes, we are able to set up a complete demo or a complete POC instead of several hours, especially if you are not extremely skilled on installing Alfresco. So, which is your experience on that part, especially on the use cases that you faced in the recent past about some months on the content services side?
Yeah, so the content services side we've had use for quite a few different things so far. It's actually been really interesting. Again, the premise of it was to try and make the trialing, the POCs, those kind of things quicker, as well as also going through to production. But again, that secondary that's crucial is around that referential point. And I think it was probably about a month ago we had an organization take the Quickstart for content services and then scale it out to, I think it was about 300 million documents. So for them, they wanted to prove a certain level of scale and to be able to prove, run some benchmark tests, again, using the benchmark framework that's on GitHub, run some benchmarking tests to say, if a user does this action and does this search, then uploads these many documents, and I then replicate that to be 1,000 users, can I get this, what level of performance can I expect? What will it cost me to run an Alfresco that can cope with that workload in AWS? And will it still do that whilst ingesting an additional 1 million documents over, 1 million to 10 million documents a day? And so they were able to actually perform the whole of that POC of whether Alfresco is good enough for them within 2 weeks. Whereas if you compare that to the traditional way of doing it, when you have to talk to the infrastructure team to get servers, to then get an Alfresco deployed, and then when external bodies such as consultancies, partners, Alfresco want to help make it successful, you'd normally need to allow us into their network to be able to actually go work on site with them. This has changed that game a bit when we've been able to do it in environments that's more safe to be open, also to certain IPs, and allowing us all to collaborate in that environment when we need to triage issues. So that's been where it's had the biggest impact so far. And again, I'd love to hear how people that listen to this, how you're able to make use of it and what you'd like to try and use these things for.
I have an example. Obviously, being formerly within DevOps, I like to be able to just dispose of software or infrastructure very quickly. Just if it didn't work, throw away and start again. So having a proof of concept that you can spin up in a very short space of time is ideal for proving if things can be done. So as an example, how can I migrate my on-prem to the cloud? Well, let's spin up a quick start and let's see what hurdles we face along the way. How do we do it? Do we pull it? Do we pull the data from on-prem? Do we push from on-prem? Do we what do we need to meander? Do we need to move the content to the bucket first and then update the tables? Do we update the tables and then the bucket? And as we're going along, we go, oh damn, that didn't work. Okay, throw that environment away, spin it up again in 25 minutes and start again. But from that point where we failed, let's try the alternative. So it's really quick. It's a great enabler to say, what can we do with this environment? Can we use it just as an endpoint, as an API, as a service point to do something? It doesn't necessarily need that front end. You can just have it as an in-between. You can use the AWS Quickstart as a way of managing your processes. So you might have an application that says, I want to kick off a process that sends off some emails. Okay, we'll send a webhook to the APS endpoint and do something. But within that, you can create your process, your gates, and so on and so forth. So there's endless use cases for these tools, and I think that's just limited by what you can think of.
Great. I think that's all from the chat and the RC channel. I don't know if you have any other topic you want to cover.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming and sharing. And actually, we love Tech Talk Live because it's one of the rare occasions when you actually get to see somebody building something live. So it's really cool to have a session where start to finish, you can see a fun, and that's what's amazing about this is the time frame, right? How much you can actually do in the time. So thank you guys for coming. Obviously, everybody knows how to find you in the community or on any of the channels that we have. Other last minute things, see you guys on Friday for an ADF example of some sort. We'll see what that is. And then, of course, all things Defcon, you have 40 days to make your plans to be there. It's a free conference, so be sure to check out the website, devcon.alfresco.com. Francesco and I are always accessible via IRC or the community if you have questions. And that's our time, guys. So we will see you on Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
guys. Cheers.
Bye.